This is Dads Watching Sports. It's the show by dads who watch sports, for dads who watch sports, or just dads in general. Here are the dads with a plan for every hashtag dad life and sports fan, Kyle Castles and Michael Draper.
And here we are, Kyle Castles and Michael Draper. Welcome into Dad's Watching Sports. Yes, Kyle, as you can see, I've got the best attire ready for Christmas as anyone could possibly have. Do you like the Christmas tree glasses?
I mean, we've been sitting here for 30 minutes talking, and you had nothing. These glasses weren't on. The hat wasn't on. And now all of a sudden I look up, and here you are with your glasses and hat.
That's right. I was glad to see as we were going through the intro video that you weren't really paying attention. So I just kind of deked back a little bit, put them on, and I'm ready to go. I've got to get rid of these things. They're absolutely ridiculous, but I thought I would at least start the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So for those of you that are joining us on our live stream, thanks so much. Again, this is Dad's Watching Sports, Michael Draper and Kyle Castles. Kyle, it's the 19th of December. We are just a mere 6 days away from Christmas, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a little bit. We also have a great guest coming up here in just a few minutes, but it's been 2 weeks since we last spoke on this podcast. Everything going well in the Castles household? You guys getting ready for Christmas?
We are. You can see the tree behind me. Yep. I don't know which way I need to point. Anyways, yep. But back over there.
There you go.
Got the tree up, got presents wrapped, and more presents to wrap. I haven't wrapped a single one yet, but I'll get there. I'll get there. It's coming. I mean, it'll get done.
Absolute slacker. But you still have time. There's always
time.
There's always time. Well, good. Well, yeah. Well, like I said, we're going to get into a little bit of that here in just a little bit, but we have a great guest that I'm really excited about that we'll bring on here in just a second. Scott Clamme. He, Kyle, for the longest time we'd gone through these, we'd brought up these All-Pro Dad articals. I feel like we've at least done probably a dozen on the show, and we said, hey, we're gonna try and get someone from All-Pro Dad, and I kind of reached out to some folks, and finally we have our prized guest from All-Pro Dad, which I'm really excited because he's written some really great articles as a contributor. So really excited to have him on.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I'll pull the curtain back a little bit. We actually spoke with him right before the show. He seems like a good guy, so I'm looking forward to asking him a few questions.
Yep, and also a Boilermaker fan, so we're going to get into some of that as well here in just a little bit. But We'll bring on Scott now. Scott, welcome to Dad's Watching Sports. How are you?
Really good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. We are really glad to have you as well. And as I mentioned, you're a contributor to All-Pro Dad, written a lot of different articles from them, but also, as we were talking before the show, a high school teacher and coach. So tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got into that role as a high school teacher and coach.
Yeah, my mom was a teacher, and so I went to Purdue. You mentioned I'm a Boilermaker. Went to Purdue, and at the time didn't really know what I wanted to do, and got into education, kind of following in my mom's footsteps. Then as a first year teacher, I saw there was an opening for a freshman basketball coach, and talked to the head coach about it, and he said, hey, I'd like you to do this. And I said, nah, first year teaching, I probably shouldn't do it. And he said, yeah, you're going to do it. And so I probably shouldn't. And then the athletic director called me down, and he's like, hey, here's a contract for coaching freshmen. I was like, I probably shouldn't do it. It's first year teaching. And he's like, yeah, go ahead and sign this. And so anyway, I've loved it. I've been coaching for 20 years, most of the last 20 years. I had a couple of years where I took off. But it's great. Spending time with kids, being a high school special ed teacher. I see one kind of group of students, and then coaching, I see kind of another group of students. And now I teach psychology also, where I can kind of get to see another group of students. And so it helps round me out with the kids that I work with. So,
yeah, no, excuse me, absolutely. So. I was looking at the kind of the short bio they have on you as a contributor to All-Pro Dad. Says you're, like you said, high school teacher and coach in East Central Indiana, passionate about helping students and players become the very best versions of themselves. Kyle, I feel like I've heard that before from one John Calipari. Scott, did you steal that from Coach Cal? Because that's a Calism.
I may have heard him say that at some point. I'm not a Kentucky fan. I think if I'm right, you're the Kentucky basketball fan, and then Kyle, you're the Auburn football fan. Is that right?
Mississippi State.
Oh, Mississippi State. Okay, all right. So anyway, I may have heard him say that along the line somewhere. But I've got a lot of respect for the way he does things. He wrote a book, and I haven't read it, but I've heard other coaches talk about it and read some excerpts from it. And I think he does a good job, a really good job relating to his players and building relationships with his players. And that's the thing about him that's impressed me the most. For
sure. No, absolutely. I had to get that in as a big UK football and basketball fan. I feel like Calipari mentions that all the time. It's like, you just be the best version of yourself, and then that'll help our team be the best version of itself. So, Kyle, go ahead.
So I was just wondering, it's obvious you're passionate about your kids. I'll use, that's the term I use for my students and when I was coaching my players. But your passion for sports, where did that come from? Who influenced that passion, that kind of stuff?
Well, when I was growing up, my dad, my older brother, and then I had a couple of older cousins. So, the four of us boys, they were all older than me, and they were Purdue fans. And my dad and my uncle went to Purdue. So the Purdue, being a Purdue fan, just and loving Purdue sports has kind of been a family thing. But then, growing up, my dad, he'd go out in the backyard and he'd hit fly balls to my brother and I, and we'd play baseball in the yard and play basketball in the driveway. And so it's just kind of been a family thing all the time growing up. We lived on a farm in rural Indiana, and I can remember we'd be baling hay and loading it into the barn, and my dad would, he'd list off a city, and we'd have to say the professional sports team. So he'd be like Pittsburgh, and we'd say Pirates, and kind of like flashcards almost, getting to know professional teams. And we'd go through mostly baseball, and then we get into football, and then he'd quiz us about, okay, is that a National League team or an American League team? And so my dad and my brother especially were very influential on me developing with sports.
Yeah. So, you've mentioned Boilermaker, and that's, as you mentioned, because of your family and your dad and siblings. But growing up in Indiana, what I can imagine was the time that you did, and being someone who's fond of basketball, was there any pressure to join the Hoosier Nation?
Not in my family. There were a lot of people. I can still remember going into church on a Sunday morning after a Purdue IU game, and shaking hands. The Purdue fans were always a little happier if they won, or the IU fans were happier if they won. So I wouldn't say there was pressure, but there was always a lot of, in our community at least, a lot of friendly rivalries. I had a math teacher in 7th and 8th grade. He knew I was a big Purdue fan. He was an IU fan. So we'd always bet a Coke on the game. And nice. I just happened to get lucky. There were a couple of years there where I was drinking a Coke in math class, and felt pretty cool about that. But it was that was kind of neat.
Well, Purdue's had a lot of success in multiple facets in sports really over the past couple of years. But a couple that I wanted for us to bring up with you, since you are a big fan, is, I think over the past couple of years, if you think really kind of those really just inspirational and just unbelievable heartfelt moments in college football, and you have to go back to 2019 with Tyler Trent and just everything that he was going through, and just the emotion around that with the Purdue Boilermaker football team, and then going in and knocking off Ohio State, who I believe was either the number 1 or 2 team in the country at that time. So just talk about that as a Purdue fan and what that was like to see that kind of all unfold.
Tyler, it's an amazing story with him. Mm-hmm. It's extremely inspirational. When I think about it, because, I'm from Indiana, he was a kid from Indiana, we both went to Purdue, he's going to classes, the same lecture halls I went to. So I have that, that relationship to his story where I sometimes forget how far reaching that story was. Yeah. And the amount of lives that he touched with his inspirational story. And the thing that I think is so amazing about him is how, him in facing the adversity he was facing, he was able to inspire other people. My son had surgery a few years ago at Riley Hospital in Indianapolis. And while we were there, we were really fortunate. It was right before COVID, and it was right before Christmas, and Jacoby Brissett came in, the Colts quarterback at the time, and he was going around to the different, kids' rooms in the hospital, and just coming in. They were singing some Christmas songs, and it was pretty neat. And then a couple of days later, a couple of the Purdue basketball players actually came in, and for us, that was a pretty neat experience too. And here's a situation where they're visiting kids to inspire kids to help get better, but Tyler Trent is worse off, health-wise than these kids, and he's out inspiring these athletes to get better. And so, the fact that he was able to deal with what he was going through in a way that could inspire other people, and not worry about his adversity, but worry about going out there and being strong for other people, I think, is a pretty awesome and inspiring story.
For sure. Absolutely.
Well, I don't really know how to segue from that to this next question, so I'm going to use that very awkward segue to do so. Your Boilermakers play in the Music City Bowl against Tennessee this year in the bowl game, and what should we? Because me and Mike, we're both living just south of Nashville. What should we expect to see?
Here, let me help you with the segue for that. The last time the Purdue played in that bowl game, Tyler Trent was actually there, and that was just a few days. I think it was just maybe a week or two before he passed away, and so he was able to go there. The Colts owner Jim Irsay actually flew him and his family down there for that game.
Right.
Wow.
He was the team captain, the honorary team captain for that game. Unfortunately, that game didn't turn out real well on the field, but Tyler Trent was there for that, and so I'm sure there will be some emotions, especially for Coach Braum and some of those other players who have been around going back there. But it's going to be a tough task for the Boilers. The best player really on each side of the ball has decided not to play. George Karlaftis, defensive end for the Boilers, an excellent player. He's not going to be in the game. And then David Bell, a fantastic receiver with phenomenal hands. Hopefully you'll hear those guys' names in the NFL in a few years. Those guys won't be there. But I'm still looking forward to the game. There's some neat stories with other players. The quarterback was a former walk-on, Aiden O'Connell. He's done a great job. He's going to come back next year for a 6th year, which, with that COVID year, I think, everybody kind of gets, an additional year there. But he was a walk-on who eventually earned a scholarship. He's a great story. There's another player, Jackson Anthrop, who, as you're listening, if you watch the game, I'm sure they'll talk about him a little bit. He's a real exciting player, receiver to watch. But his family story is kind of neat because his dad had played at Purdue, played basketball at Purdue. His mom was a student at Purdue. But then for like the last 10 years, we've had an Anthrop either on the football team or the basketball team because his older brother played football for for 4 years. And I think he overlapped with Drew Anthrop, who had been on the basketball team. And then maybe there was a year off, and now Jackson Anthrop is in his final year. And so it'll be the end of the Anthrop era at Purdue. But he's a fan favorite. So, you'll see the Boiler fans get excited when he makes a big play.
Well, one thing you didn't mention was TJ Sheffield, and not that you should have by any means, but I just have a connection there. I coached the same team he played on in high school. I was coaching the offensive line while he was a receiver in DB for us. So my wife's a Tennessee fan. I probably have to pull for Tennessee or it's going to be a bad night at my house. But I do hope TJ shows out and plays
well. I can guarantee you, Scott, you will have some Boilermaker fans in the Draper household because we are as a Kentucky fan, I'm pretty anti-Tennessee. So we will be cheering on for the Boilermakers the whole way. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, I kind of wondered about that. When we talked about being on here, and I knew, they're going to be playing in Nashville. They're going to be playing against Tennessee. These guys are in Nashville. So, I wasn't sure how it would come down. Then knowing you were a Kentucky fan, I thought, well, you might be on our side for this.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Well, last question about Purdue athletics before we get into some other stuff. You guys got a pretty good basketball team this year, and have over the past couple of years, but got up to the number one team in the country at one point in time this year, and are going to be there probably all year as one of the best teams in the country. So what's the fan pulse like around Purdue basketball, and is this the year that they break through and make the Final Four?
Oh, I'd love for that to happen. I'm not going to make any predictions because I don't want to be bad luck. But it's a team that the fans can really get behind, and that's one thing. It's a little different than Kentucky in the way Calipari does things. Painter and Calipari just are a little two different styles. Both great styles. You can win a lot of ways. Playing basketball if you do what you do well. Calipari, he gets those top line recruits. He does a great job with that. And Painter kind of has guys come in who are going to be there for 4 years. And so they develop that experience and that team chemistry. And, I think it'd be a really exciting matchup to see them, playing each other in the Final Four this year. But the Purdue team, the fans are excited. It's a really deep team. So it's not one of those teams that's going to come in and just dominate you, from tip to buzzer. But it's a deep team that'll come in and kind of wear you down. And if you get a chance to watch them, don't get too concerned in that first half, but, late in the game, kind of see how they're able to finish up. And Coach Painter's done a good job so far this year of rotating players through. So it'll be interesting to see how that is, because I know coaching wise, sometimes it's tough to find those right combinations.
Sure.
But he's basically got two guys at each of the 5 spots that are really excellent players and do their role very well.
Yeah. Well, they've had a lot of success in years past, so I think they're you guys are due. I think a breakthrough in getting to a Final Four. So I'll be well. I hope it's not at the expense of my Wildcats. I'll be cheering for you for sure to make that run. So
yeah.
Well, this is.
I don't know what this. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say this is Dad's Watching Sports. Let's talk a little bit of family. Can you just tell us a little bit about your family?
Yeah, I've been married for almost 20 years, and my beautiful wife Shay, and then we've got 3 kids. We've got a daughter she's a senior in high school. Excuse me. She's a senior in high school, and she's going to go on a college visit on Tuesday, and she's been getting her acceptance letters back from colleges. So far, she's got in. I think she applied at 6 colleges, and she's gotten into 5 of the 6 so far, and just waiting to hear back on 1. But that's it's
nice.
For you guys, I know your kids are younger, so it seems like it's a long way off. But as I've listened to some of your podcasts, the stories you guys talk about with your kids and potty training and those kinds of things, seems like that was just a couple days ago. But so my oldest daughter, anyway, she's going to be graduating this year. I've got a son who's a sophomore in high school, and then another daughter who's a 7th grader, and they're all fantastic kids, in my opinion.
Well, do any of them enjoy sports?
Yeah. My oldest daughter, she's actually a 4-sport athlete. So she plays soccer in the fall, then she swims in the winter, runs track in the spring. Sorry, it's that point in the coaching season and basketball season when my voice tends to go away. I've just started to get it back, but I've been popping cough drops pretty consistently.
Completely understandable. So.
Yeah. So, and then she also is a cheerleader. So she's definitely got a passion for sports, and she loves it. My son, he's gotten to that age where, he really we enjoy watching sports together. He loves playing soccer. That's kind of his main sport. And then my daughter, the 7th grader, 6th grader. See, your kids get to a certain age, you're old. I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for calling her a 7th grader. So anyway, she plays soccer and basketball and runs cross country. So they're all pretty active kids, and it's a lot of fun.
So you've mentioned your oldest daughter, senior in high school, got all these things going on, and you mentioned our kids are quite a bit younger. So we both have daughters. Mine is 5, and Kyle's has just turned 2. So much younger, obviously. But as we are making our way into, dad life with these daughters that are going to be growing up years and years and years, Scott, do you have any advice for us? Because I know it's going to be tough.
And that's one of the reasons that I've enjoyed writing the articles that I write for All Pro Dads, is because I've made a lot of mistakes. And so, one of the articles you had mentioned when you emailed me is about, 7 things to talk to your kids about, before it's too late. And for me, that was kind of inspired by the fact that I've been a little too late on some things. And so, like my daughter is right now trying to figure out what kind of career she wants to have. And, we should have been pushing that a little more early on. And, when she got her driver's license, going from her getting her driver's license to now my son, having his learner's permit, I've learned a little bit in there. And, with my daughter, we didn't talk about driving a whole lot. I look back and I think, well, there were hours and hours that we sat in the car together. She was in the front seat, and I didn't point out simple things like, hey, that's a yield sign right there. This is how a roundabout works. And just little things. And today's kids, in the car, they're on the phone so often that, sometimes they're not picking up those little things that we think they should. So, with my son, and I've tried to correct that a little bit and touch on some of those things a little sooner. So he's picking up on those a little better than she was. So, there's, what I would say to you guys, or anyone who's a parent of young kids or a parent for the first time, is talk to other dads, listen to other dads, read a book about being a dad every now and then. Cause I think it's so important for us to just continue to grow all the time, and learn and become better. As teachers, we get evaluated as teachers. There's no one evaluating us as parents. So we've got to kind of do that ourselves and think, okay, what can I do better in this situation? What did I mess up this time that I can do better? And then, like I said, read, listen to other dads, the articles on All Pro Dads. I'm not just saying mine, but I started writing those because I'd read so many other good articles by other dads. But if we're just trying to get better every day and ask ourselves, how can I be better as a dad? I think that's the main thing, because we're all going to make mistakes. We're going to do things wrong. And if we can just, try to limit that and make some corrections along the way, then we all just do our best.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's such great advice, because I think we often don't really either recognize that or give ourselves the grace to think that, like, yeah, we are going to mess up and things aren't going to go maybe the way that we scripted sometimes, or that we thought was going to be scripted sometimes, and that's okay. But to learn from it, and like you said, continue to grow and educate yourself, I think that's so important, and that's such great advice. So thank you for that. We'll talk a little bit about All Pro Dad and kind of how you became a contributor. You mentioned that you read a lot of articles before you did that. So how did you kind of get connected, and then how did you go to becoming a contributor?
Well, All Pro Dad, and I don't know how much you guys know about, they kind of have 3 segments or 3 types of activities that they do. One is they have kind of in stadium free event days. They haven't done those as much the last couple of years. Tony Dungy, I know you guys had talked about him a little bit in one of your previous podcasts, but he was instrumental in kind of getting All Pro Dad started. And so when my daughter, that's a senior now, was I think about 5 years old, we had they had an All Pro Dad event at Lucas Oil Stadium, which was pretty much brand new at the time. And so I took her down. The guy I coached with, he took his son down, and we went down, and it was a really neat experience. And, they did some little drills on the field with them. And they talked to the dads about being dads and how we can be better dads. And then after that, I'd signed up for the second kind of thing they do is just the email, the play of the day, which is just, the email advice for dads. And so I was receiving those after that and read those and really enjoyed them. They, made me think about, what I was doing as a dad. And then the third part is an All Pro Dad Day, which has been really special for me and my kids. And that is just a once a month day where you go in the morning, basically have breakfast, have dads come in with their kids. We have breakfast, and we All Pro Dad sends out a curriculum for it. So every month there's a different theme. It may be leadership or friendship or compassion. Something that's just great to talk about. They've got a little video clip. So for dads out there who want to get involved in that, there's like a $50 fee for the year, but then all the curriculum is there for you. And so you go into the school and you just meet, have the dads come in. And for us, it's been great. For my son, we started doing that when my son was in, I think, 5th grade. And so for he and I, it was a lot of fun because we'd go pick up the donuts the night before or that morning and kind of arrange it. And that was kind of neat. But then I continued that with my daughter. And so right now, with my daughter being in 6th grade, that'll be our final year of it, because it's kind of set up, for elementary age students. And anyway, I've really enjoyed that. And just kind of along the way there, I came across, they were looking for writers. And so I, sent in an article, just kind of, hey, what do you think of this? There's a little application process they have. And they said they liked it and asked me if I'd be willing to keep doing it. And it's been a lot of fun. And the whole going through the process has been really neat, just learning how that writing process works. And, the monthly, you send in your ideas for stories and they're like, hey, let's write this one or tweak it in a certain way. So, and it's been a lot of fun for me.
Well, let's talk about that writing process. Do you have any life experiences that you reflect on when you're writing those pieces for All Pro Dad?
Yeah, kind of like I mentioned earlier, the mistakes I make. Some of my inspirations have come from coaching, things that I've come across while coaching. Some of them have just been parenting things, whether it's mistakes I made or maybe something I actually did right once or twice. So just different good experiences. Some things from teaching. So and you're a teacher, so those classroom experiences. You see positive ways kids should react or negative ways, and you can relate that to being a parent. And so it's just come from a variety of different things.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, we'll let you get out of here in just a second. Thanks so much for not only just kind of, shooting the breeze with us about Purdue sports and about dad life, but talking, just all the advice as well. This has been great and great to get to talk with you and get to know you. But, we've had a lot of guests, Kyle, this year on this show, a lot of really, really great guests. But I would have to say that, Scott, you have really kind of tipped the iceberg in your favor for guests of the year, and not only because of the great content from tonight, but Kyle, did you know that prior to our show tonight that Scott sent us a gift?
You have told me about this gift, but I have no idea what it is. So
full disclosure, Scott, I didn't share it with Kyle because I wanted to get his first reaction. So Kyle, Scott's mentioned this a couple of times already. He did his homework. He went back and when we invited him on, he went back and listened to our show and multiple podcasts. And Kyle, I don't know if you remember this or not, but a couple episodes ago, it was right after your son's birthday where you talked about eating pancakes the morning of his birthday, and you guys not having what? Syrup. So Kyle, Scott sent you some syrup. And Scott, I want to make sure that I get this right. So I want you to tell Kyle about this syrup. But first off, thank you. This is incredibly nice. But Kyle, I'm going to give this to you in the next couple of days, the next time I see you. But Scott, tell us a little bit about the story behind the syrup.
Yeah, I was listening. I think it was your Thanksgiving Day podcast, or it was right after Thanksgiving, and you were talking about the fact that you had to use Caro syrup, which I will say my dad used Caro syrup on pancakes when I was growing up. And then your son Wrigley, I believe. By the way, I'm a Cubs fan also. My son's name is Ryan. Not Ryan, R-Y-N.
Ryan. Yeah.
Anyway, so during COVID, my brother and I, we live on a farm, so we decided to tap some maple trees and make some maple syrup. So this is 100% maple syrup. If you look on the log cabin container, it's going to say, you look on the ingredients, it's going to say corn syrup. Mrs. Buttersworth, that's all corn syrup. This is 100% maple syrup from the great state of Indiana. So it's kind of light colored and kind of runny because that's how natural maple syrup is, especially the beginning of the season. It's kind of light. It gets darker throughout the season. So anyway, I hope you enjoy that, and I hope your son Wrigley, is it right? Am I right in saying your son's name is Wrigley?
Yeah. Wrigley,
okay.
Yes.
Well, if hopefully next time he has pancakes, hopefully he can have some maple syrup for those.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. When I opened that, because I'll be honest, Scott, I was really interested. I was like, what could he possibly be sending? And when I opened it, I just started dying out laughing. And my wife was like, what are you laughing at? And I told her, I was like, do you remember back on the show when Kyle, and I said, he sent us maple syrup, which is so awesome. So I'm going to get a taste test with our kids before I bring it to you, Kyle. But I will we'll bring the real maple syrup to you. So, Scott, again, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for the syrup. We really enjoyed the conversation and really just getting to know you and meeting you and everything. But Merry Christmas to you and your family. Happy holidays. It's good to have you on, and we look forward to staying in touch and seeing you again soon.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Thanks. Have a Merry Christmas.
All right. Thanks. You too.
All right. You too. So, Kyle, did you, of all the possible things, did you think of maple syrup?
The answer is no.
I know. When I got it, I was like, that is the greatest thing, I think. Because, I mean, first off, how nice for him to send a thank you card, thanking us for inviting him on the show, and then to also follow that up with maple syrup was just fantastic.
Hey, you know what? I think you're right. I think he is the number one guest in the history of the show.
Well, I mean, our wives have been on a couple of times. So
that's a good point.
But we will give second place to Scott Clamme. And so for future guests out there that are listening, and I know you are, you're on notice that we can be bought with gifts.
Yes,
that
we can.
Can definitely happen. Well, Kyle, we've still got a little bit of time here left in the show. So a couple of things that I wanted to hit on with you. Let's go to the sports world first. Right. So this weekend, Kyle, was the return of Tiger Woods to a golf course after that horrific accident that he had. But he wasn't playing alone. He was playing with his son in the PNC Championship. And he and his son, I forgot his kid's name, but came in second place. I'll first just talk about how cool that would be to play in a golf tournament as a pro golfer with your kid. And then I'll tell you, I don't know if you know who actually won that tournament, but and it's just thinking like as a dad and somebody who's been at the very height, like could be the greatest of all time of your sport, and being able to do that with your son or your daughter, I would imagine is just a really cool thing. Oh,
I'm sure it is. I mean, it gets no better for Tiger Woods than being able to go and play golf with his son in a tournament like that. We got the Saints Bucks on tonight, and I'm sure Tom Brady will be able to tell us how great it is to play with his son in the NFL at the rate he's going, right?
Yeah.
But no, it had to be just almost surreal for Tiger. I don't know if you could even put words to it, and then them coming in second place, that's got to be one of the coolest feelings ever, right?
Yeah. So there was also a tweet that came out over the weekend. I believe it was ESPN that tweeted this out, where Tiger's sitting in an interview setting and someone shows him on their phone this clip of his son basically showing him all the same mannerisms. So like it was the swing, the twirl of the club after he releases after the swing through the swing, the fist pump, basically kind of like all the key Tiger mannerisms. And his son does the same thing. And you could see him watching that and almost like starting to get choked up and he just goes, man, that's really cool. Just to see, like, I'm sure his son from day one has watched and wanted to emulate dad, and to see that kind of coming to fruition. I mean, I would hope that, you and I obviously aren't professional golfers or any kind of professional athlete, but anything that we do that we see our kids emulate, it makes us definitely a proud dad for sure. Right.
Yeah. Unless they're emulating the bad things that I do. Like,
unless they're yelling or
Exactly.
yelling obscenities across the restaurant or something. You're like, oh, he got that from his mother.
You said that, not me.
Yeah, love you, honey.
You hear that, Suzanne?
Yep. Well, quick side note: John Daly and his son won the PNC championship, which even makes that story cooler.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank goodness for John Daly.
I know, right? Let's shift gears a little bit. Just kind of thinking through, what are some of the big things going on in the world and pop culture and everything. So, Kyle, a new Spider-Man movie is out. So I was actually at a pool supply store a couple of days ago getting some stuff for our hot tub up at the lake, and humble brag there. I was talking. I was getting some chemicals or whatever, and the guy goes, he I guess just wanted to make small talk, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm pretty excited for tonight." And I looked around, and I was like, are you talking to me? Like, what are you excited about? And he's like, I'm going to see the new Spider-Man movie. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really realize that there was one out. I'm just not a huge Spider-Man fan, but no offense to anybody that is. But it did let me think of, as you're thinking through kind of like those big genre of movies, and I've got a couple that on my list here of, what is the best like grouping or genre or whatever for movies. So I'm gonna give you the rundown, and we can either just select your number one. You can give me your top 5 or 6, or you can just however we want to kind of do this. But if you're thinking through like Marvel, DC Comics, Star Wars, Harry Potter, and then like Lord of the Rings / Hobbit, when you think through those, Kyle, where are you tipping your hat to as the best kind of group or genre of those types of films?
So I've never seen a Harry Potter movie. Never even attempted to watch it.
Nice.
And I tried to watch the first Lord of the Rings and fell asleep during it.
Yep.
So those two I can kind of get rid of. And that leaves us with what? Star Wars, Marvel, and DC?
Yep.
So here's the thing. There's DC movies that I grew up on, right? There's the Superman movies, and at least the first 3 were pretty good. The fourth one with, what'd they call him? What Nuclear Man? It was...
No idea.
No idea. Okay. Anyways, those weren't bad. You had like the Tim Burton Batmans, right? Batman and Batman Returns. You had Jack Nicholson playing the Joker in Batman. That was a great couple movies. Now, when you ended up getting the Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, okay, we're getting a little hokey and it's not as good. We then came back. DC came back with like Man of Steel, which I really enjoyed. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I enjoyed Man of Steel. But the Batman movies, the most recent Batman movies haven't been great. I mean, you have, the Christian Bale, Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises. Those are fantastic. Marvel, they have put together their cinematic universe, and it's taken off and blew up.
Yeah.
To the point that, kids a little bit older than mine, I think, grow up saying my favorite superhero is Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, whatever, where that was not us when we were growing up. For us, It was all DC. It was, are you a Batman or are you Superman? Spider-Man a little bit for us. I think there's a few, but those were kind of the weird kids that nobody liked anyway. So,
and I feel like for us, and this is not even a group that I put on here, X-Men, I feel like was definitely kind of like the big thing when we were growing up, at least compared to Marvel.
Well, X-Men is Marvel, but it wasn't the Marvel. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Obviously, your comic books really well.
Clearly.
But then there's Star Wars. It's hard to go against Star Wars, except they've had some real, episode 1 with Jar Jar Binks, like, yeah, so, okay. After saying all of that, can I put the Rocky movies in front of all of them? Is that
sure?
So Rocky's one, but then like Star Wars, I think is there. I think the better movies have been in DC. I just think they're a little bit older than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So give me DC and then Marvel, but that's really, really close, and I wouldn't argue if you wanted to go the other way. I did like Guardians of the Galaxy. Both of those were pretty hilarious. What do you think? Sorry, I've kind of rambled.
No, you're good. So I've seen. I think I've seen every Harry Potter. It's been a long time, but I've seen every one of them. They're fine. I mean, I don't really get into that kind of stuff, but I watch them and they're fine. They're not bad, but they're not great. Lord of the Rings, I've seen those as well, but like you said, I mean, I probably could have. I don't remember a single thing about them except for I think in one of them there were giant trees that walked and talked. I'll save Star Wars to the end, but Marvel and DC is where I don't know that I overly care for either. I mean, I definitely liked you mentioned the original Batman movies. Those were good. I don't know that I've, other than like the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, I don't know that I've ever, I don't know that I've seen any Superman movie other than that original one. And Marvel, I actually probably 6 months ago was like, you know what? All these are on Disney Plus. I'm just going to start going through in order and I'm going to watch all the Marvel movies. And I made it through Captain America. And then I tried to watch the one where the woman, it's the maybe
Captain Marvel.
Yeah. And just couldn't get into it. I have seen Guardians of the Galaxy. Randomly, I watched one of the Avenger movies. I don't even know which one it was. It's the one where the guy snapped his fingers at the end and
Thanos,
yeah. But yeah, I just can't really get into any of those either. So for number one for me is Star Wars. And I know the last 6 have been very controversial to the Star Wars, purists. But yeah, I got to go Star Wars number one.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat, even if you just start taking it and you take that original trilogy. I mean, that original trilogy is tough to beat. I think there's some that you left out. If you want to just talk about like movie franchises, I mean, you got the Back to the Future franchise.
Absolutely.
You got the Matrix franchise, and we're adding to it here in a few weeks, right?
I get. I was never really a big
not
fan.
A Matrix guy.
No, not really. No.
I like the first one. I mean, they progressively got worse, and by what was it, Matrix Reloaded or Revolution, whatever the third one was, it was like, this could have gone without. But the Jason Bourne movies,
yeah, not bad.
You didn't even mention the Bond films.
Oh yeah, which I speaking of
you
Bond,
are a Bond fan.
I am a Bond fan, and the guy at the pool supply store let me know that the new Bond movie apparently is really good. Maybe the best Bond of Daniel Craig's career. So I've got to get in and watch that one. I've seen all the other ones, but I haven't seen that one yet. So, but anyways, well, I'm sure the new Spider-Man movie is great. I hope my friend at the pool supply store enjoyed his premiere because he was really psyched about it. And I hope everybody enjoys it. Kyle, we're just a few days from Christmas. Big plans for you guys, or y'all just kind of keeping it low key?
We're keeping it low key. We got family coming up to visit us instead of us going down to visit family. So that's a plus. I'm assuming y'all are headed to the Humble Brag Lake House for Christmas. I believe that's what you told me.
Yeah, we are. And I'm actually glad you mentioned that. One thing that we have not yet mentioned on this show, because this happened kind of during the off week, was just the horrific storms that kind of ravaged this area, predominantly in Kentucky, but just north of us. We got extremely lucky that it was about 10 miles north of our lake house. The power did go out for a little bit, but nothing got damaged. But I mean, just sheer devastation in Mayfield and Dawson Springs and other Bowling Green and other parts of Western Kentucky. And so our thoughts and prayers definitely go out to that. So we are actually we're collecting some supplies and some toys and some goodies from kind of friends and family around to take up there. So we're going to go up on New Year's Eve, and there's actually a Y there in Mayfield that did not get destroyed. We're going to take some stuff up there and drop it off, and then spend a couple of days up there for Christmas, which we're excited about. So if anybody listening to this, if you live in the greater Nashville area, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll if you got some stuff you want to send with us, we'll take it up and drop it off to those places. But just hate to see Especially, I mean, it's never a good time, but especially this time of year. I mean, people just losing everything.
Yeah, I'm actually headed out to finish up some shopping tomorrow, and I was going to text you and just say, hey, what do you need? And so expect that text from me.
Absolutely.
Because I know that that's a fluid situation and those needs change.
Yep. Absolutely.
Like I said, expect that text from me tomorrow, and we'll have something when we see you on, is it Wednesday? Wednesday, I think.
I think it is. That it is.
Yep.
Well, Hal, this is our last show of 2021. We will be back in January of 2022 because we don't have a show next week because it's the day after Christmas. But a new year, a new couple of dads, as in us two, coming back and being ready for some great guests and some great content in 2022. It's hard to believe. Kyle, coming up in February, it'll be 2 years since we launched this podcast, and we're coming up on 100 episodes as well, as we're in episode 89 this week. So, hard to believe.
It's crazy that this is still going on. And all it started with was a very short conversation. Hey, I think about doing a podcast. You want to join? And I said, why not?
Let's do it. No doubt about it. So, well, Merry Christmas to you, my friend, and to all those that are listening out there. And everybody have a safe holiday season. And we will see you again in 2022. This has been Dad's Watching Sports. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Bye.